Samantha from Jessima Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to create faux heated copper from polymer clay. Now, I have already done this before, or I have attempted to anyway. There'll be a link to that in the description below, but this is the result of the last time I tried this out, and I wasn't ultimately happy with the result, so today I'm going to be trying it again. So what I have got here is mostly Cernit polymer clay because I find their metallics are better, and also because I can get colours in their metallics that I can't with Polymer. So the colours that I've got here are blue, teal, rust, 18 karat gold, and then with the Polymer I have copper because I don't have this one in the Cernit. Feel free to mix your brands of polymer clay. Generally I have no problems with it at all, so just find the colours that you think are going to work. Right, then from there you're going to take a Skinner blend cutter, or any triangle cutter will work. If you're interested in this, I do have a link to it in the description, along with a number of other supplies and tools that I used in today's video. But this just helps me make Skinner blends a little easier by just cutting out triangles without too much fuss. But you're going to cut a triangle out from each of the colours, and then we're going to create a Skinner blend. Okay, and there we go, it's simple as that. Then for our Skinner blend, I am going to want to first start off with the dark blue, then the kind of peacock pearl teal colour. This colour actually you can find in the Polymer, that is the peacock pearl one. Then I'm going to place the 18 karat gold. You could swap that out for regular gold polymer clay colour if you want. Then I am going to place the copper, alternating the triangles. And then finally this rust red colour, like so. And let me just quickly clean up that tile and also just my fingers there. Cernit's colours can be quite strong, so especially when working with this colour you want to try to keep things clean because it can easily bleed over onto the other colours. Then just press those together so they stick together at least a little bit, and then you can actually use your blade to pick that up and fold it in half the first time because they sometimes don't stick to each other and then can fall apart. But you're then going to take that and run that through the pasta machine a couple of times to create your Skinner blend. Alright, and here is how that blend should look once it's done. You can see there how the colours work together. Now from here I need to make a Skinner blend plug, and to do that you're going to take your blend and then fold that in half, and ultimately this is just so that we narrow it out. Okay, and just press the sides in. If you're using Cernit, sometimes I find that it can either be very soft or very crumbly. In this case it's a little firm. So if your clay is a little firm and you're having trouble with it, you can always mix softeners in, such as liquid clay, or if it is too soft you can always leach it by placing it between two pieces of paper. So that's just something to bear in mind if your clay is not quite the right consistency. Alright, and then once you've got it like this, you're just going to pop one side into the pasta machine and roll it through again, lengthening the entire blend out. Okay, and here is how that looks out of the pasta machine, and it did ripple a bit as you can see, but that is perfectly fine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on this side, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to just start folding that like this, just to start creating that Skinner blend plug. Now, I'm not too worried about it being perfectly smooth. I actually want it to have a little bit of unevenness when I'm working with it later, so I'm just going to roughly fan fold it, so don't worry too much about that. Okay, and there we go, you can see it's quite quick to do. Alright, then just grab that and just press everything together dust off any excess. Alright, and then let's see if this works. What I need to do though is I need to thin this out quite considerably. I want to bring it down to about 1/4 of the thickness that it currently is. Alright, just going to bring over my roller and just start flattening that out. And I'm working with a small amount of clay here, so it's a little fiddly, but if you want to use more clay you can absolutely do that, so feel free to have as much clay as you want. This is just a small amount because I kind of want to test if it works first before committing to a large amount. Right, and I'm just flattening that out, and I do want to stack it, so I'm going to bring over my blade, gonna cut that in half, and then I will stack it like so. Okay, and then just pinch the sides in so that it's all somewhat even together. And then the side that has the most of the rust red I'm going to work with, and I'm going to flatten that out again to about, I'd say about 1 millimeter thick, and then from there we can actually texture it with some ball stylus to create that kind of hammered metal effect. There we go. Press that down onto the tile so that it sticks. Okay, and then I've got 4 sizes of those tools right here. You can use any size that you want. You might even want to use a texture stamp instead. I'm just going to press those down and they make a noise, so I'm just being careful with that. Right, I'm going to start with the largest one first, and I want you to press down so that you almost go through the entirety of the slab. Even like that, that will work, because I really want to indent this. Okay, and then you'll move down to the next size and keep repeating that pattern, and this is going to smush those layers down and distort them so that when we go to shave it with our blade, it's going to expose multiple different layers. And also this is going to be backed by another piece of copper, so don't worry if you've got some of the pieces, if you've got some of, let me start again, don't worry if you have holes showing through the slab, because that's going to get fixed later. Your main goal now is to just introduce as much texture as possible. Alright, and that should just about do. Then just pick that up off your tile in one nice clean sweep. Grab that copper. This was also rolled out to about 1/2 millimeter thick. Place this down, and what I'm going to do also is I'm going to give this a very quick roll just to both stick it down onto the piece of clay, but also to flatten out the texture a little bit. Then let me grab my blade. You're going to want a nice flexible tissue blade for this, and now we're going to shave. And don't worry about getting it perfect. I'm actually deliberately dipping my blade up and down to get those shaves. Keep this, place that to the side. You want to have both deep and shallow so that you have a varying pattern. So over here I'm going to do it quite shallow, but yeah, that's what I am going to do. Just very gently going to reveal that pattern and keep all of those extra pieces. Okay, and I just want to grab this part right here. Then I am going to flatten that out. Again, keep all of the little pieces. I'm going to use those in a moment. This I am going to flatten out, and I'm going to deliberately spread that pattern around, flattening it out. Alright, and then once I've kind of got that somewhat level with the backing clay, I will then take these pieces that I've got just hanging around, and I'm going to place those over the top to kind of move that pattern around and create a little more variation in it. You can decide not to do that if you would prefer. I think that will look nice. Okay, and also bear in mind that once this has baked, it is going to become quite a bit more shiny, because the cernit clears up quite a bit once it's baked, and it looks really quite nice. But there we go. And yeah, that is kind of my thought process behind this heated metal effect, and I am actually quite happy with it. If I look at the pieces that I googled before doing this, it looks quite close. Alright, and then you're going to flatten that out again, and you're just going to continue doing that until the piece is completely flat. Moving everything around and stretching that pattern out is not a problem, so keep doing that. Alright, and then even if you want to, at this point, if you find spots that you're not particularly happy with, like this spot over here, I'm going to see what happens if I decide to shave that a little bit and then pop that elsewhere. Let's see. I'll avoid doing that. I think I'm happy with it the way it looks. Okay, and then I'm going to take this little texture sponge. You could also use a piece of sandpaper that has quite a coarse grit, and you're going to then texture this, and this is going to give it an even better effect. And I'll go a few times over this so that I can really embed that texture. There shouldn't be any shiny spots after you've finished that up. And let me just pick this up. And there we go. You can see how that looks, hopefully. Quite nice. Okay. Alright, and I have moved it onto a piece of paper so that the back of the piece is on the paper and therefore gives it a matte finish. And then I've selected a couple of cutters because I'm actually going to be creating a bracelet from this. So grab any cutters that you want, but I'm using these little pebble ones, and I'm going to cut out one of each, and I'm going to string that into a bracelet. Right, so then what I'm going to do, just grab these and just start cutting. It shouldn't take much, and hopefully they don't stick. Yes, they do stick. They stick in the cutter, then I think I'm actually just going to cut them out on the tile. I can always sand the back later. Alright, and I've moved it onto the tile, and I have just textured it so that it sticks to the tile. And I'm going to continue cutting out my pieces. And they shouldn't stick in the cutter then. And these are too small to have them sticking in the cutter, so it's easier to just sand the backs later. But yeah, just continue cutting these out, and they're going to look kind of like heated copper, which is what I'm going for. And yeah, just cut them out as much as you can. Then lift that clay up, and you can cut out all of them if you want to. I only need enough for a bracelet today, so I'm just going to cut out what I need. And then you're just going to use your blade to just gently lift those up off the tile. Give them a little press around the edges in case you have things that need to be removed. Like I have a little cat hair there because Kit Kat gets into everything. But yeah, just lift them up and tidy them up. And then I'm also going to make some guide holes quickly because they're quite small, so I don't want to have to drill them after they've been baked. Alright. Alright, and there we go. Then I'm just going to take a piercing pin, and on each of them I'm just going to pop a hole in and then create a matching hole on the other side so that they meet up where I want them to meet up. And I'm sorry if that's a little difficult to see, I'm trying my best to show that. But yes, these are probably going to have to get re-drilled once they've been baked, but I am just putting the guide hole in now because it will be fiddly and difficult to do after they've been baked if I haven't done at least just kind of a guide along with where I need to go. But you'll do that for all of them, and then you're going to pop those into the oven for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature. And once they're done, you can give them a sand. I don't think these ones are going to need a sand, but if you feel the need, then feel free to do that. But I think the next step that's going to happen is going to be the drilling process. Alright, and when they come out of the oven, this is essentially what each of the pieces should look like. You can see the back is alright, it doesn't actually need to be sanded in this case, because I did bake it on a piece of paper, so it baked with a fairly matte finish. Now, the last thing we need to do before assembling our piece is to just go through and make sure that these holes are nice and clean by using a pin drill to just go through those little guide holes. And it shouldn't take that long because obviously you've already done a lot of the work. It's just to widen them out and make sure that it's nice and clean and ready for the thread that I'm going to be using in a bit. And you can of course sand these if you want, but they're pretty good the way they are, so I'm not going to worry about sanding them. Alright, and that should just about do. Alright, and I have already assembled most of the bracelet, but the process that I'm going to show is how you would do it for the entire piece. What I'm going to be using is this cord. You could use any kind of stringing material that you're okay with having show up visibly on the piece, so make sure that it's something that looks nice and is soft because it is going to be a fairly large part of the design. And the first part you're going to finish off the same way that you do on the back part, so I'll show you how to do it in a bit. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to cut your length of cord, and then you're going to thread that cord through one of the top holes of your piece. And I need to really make sure that that's nice and clear, because otherwise the cord won't go through, because this cord is quite delicate. There we go. You're going to pop that through like so, and then you're going to come back through the other end, and again I think I need to just make sure that that's even cleaner than it is. There we go. You're going to come back through the other end so that the cord is going to be visible on the back, but it's going to be very minimally visible on the other side. And this is why I was saying that you need to make sure that the cord is nice, because you're going to be feeling it on the bracelet and it is going to be visible on the back and on the sides to a degree. Then you're just going to thread that all the way up and tighten it like so. And what I usually do is I will string all of the pieces before finishing off either end, so that when I go to tighten everything up, I don't have to worry about it being right up against the ending. So I would advise doing this part first, then finishing off the ends. And what you're going to do to finish off the ends is you're going to take that final piece of cord and you're actually going to thread that back through the hole again. Let me see if I can get that on camera. This is very fiddly because it's a tight hole. Yes, I actually got that through. Alright, and then you're going to take that cord and you're going to pop that through that loop that you've created to create a little knot and pull that tight. Oh. Sorry, it's a bit fiddly. I'm trying to do it as best I can, as quickly as I can. There we go. Alright, and then make sure that that's pulled tight and is correct. Then I'm just going to arrange everything again so that it's all tight, because this is the last piece. So tighten that up. Alright, and everything should sit correctly. Then I've chosen to grab some little copper spacer beads, and I'm going to thread on 3 of those onto the ends like so, and I'll just show you the first one and then I'll skip forward. You're just gonna pop those on, and these ones are giving me trouble for some reason. Come on. There we go. Okay. But yeah, you'll thread on 3 of those. Alright, and there we go. Then I'm just going to grab that, and you're going to grab a cord end. This I believe is called either a lobster claw finding or a clamshell finding or a charlotte crimp finding. I found all 3 versions of that name when looking online, so if you're struggling to find one, try all 3. Then I'm going to grab a little crimp and I'm going to place that on. See if I can get it through. There we go. Then you're going to grab your flat nose pliers and you're going to go in there and you're going to grab that little crimp bead and you're going to squish that flat like so. Then give this a little tug to make sure that that's not going to pull up and it's nice and tight. Then go in and snip off the remaining thread. If I can actually get in there. There we go. And then you're just going to close that up so that it hides your little crimp end. Then just grab a copper jump ring and attach 1/2 of your clasp, in this case a toggle clasp, and thread that through the loops at the top of this little finding. Also, I get all of my findings and clasps off of Fire Mountain Gems and Beads if you're looking for a place to get some. But yeah, that's about it. I've made it to the size of my wrist, so it might be a little smaller or might be a little larger than what you need. Just add or take away pieces to make it the size that you want. And there we go. That's how it looks on my wrist. It's actually a little large for me, but there you can see roughly how that looks. Yeah, let me take that off. Feels quite nice. It's got a nice feel to it because all of those pieces move individually. But yeah, that is pretty much it for today's tutorial. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Do you think I did a better job of the fired copper effect? I personally really quite like it, and even if you weren't going for a copper effect, this is quite a nice subtle Mokume Gane to apply to little pieces, so definitely something to consider. Yeah, this one I think it might be a bit better. If I was going to make any changes, I think I would actually end up making it double-sided, because you can see these pieces do flip around. So the way that I could avoid that happening in the future would be to either make them double-sided so that they can flip around as they want, or you can actually apply 2 holes and you can do the process of stringing them twice. Personally, I think I would just make them double-sided because the feeling of them moving around like they do is really quite nice. So that's just some notes for the end of this video. But yeah, let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you liked the video, consider leaving a like and subscribing, as I do videos like this just about every single day. And if you'd like to support the channel so I can continue creating videos just like this one, please do consider becoming a member of the channel. There is a join button just below this video, or there is a link to my Patreon account in the description below. Both are great ways to support the channel and I'll greatly appreciate it. Another way to support the channel, if you're interested, is to check out my Etsy store, where I sell things such as the cutters that I used in today's video, along with texture stamps, silk screens, and a variety of other polymer clay themed tools and supplies. So do consider checking that out, as I'm sure there's something there that you would love. But yeah, that is just about it. I do hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.